Hi, and welcome to the latest episode of Our Mystic Road Trip. I'm Kim. I am a spiritual wellness coach and Jungian mystic who uses tarot, astrology, and mindfulness to help women find their way to their authentic self so they can find the path to their bliss. And Our Mystic Road Trip is a place where I talk about important key insights and guides and tips to help along that way. Today's topic is something super important to me. Not that any of the other topics are not, but I think a lot of the reason it took me so long to find the path was because I let limiting beliefs take control of my life. You know, these are those sneaky little patterns that you may not even notice that they have a tendency of keeping you small and safe sometimes, which is not bad, but in the end, they also can wind up making you feel very stuck. And I know people have talked about limiting beliefs before. I do. But I am so passionate about it, and we're going to dive deeper into it. We're not going to talk about just how to identify them. We're going to try to understand how they hide, and then we're going to learn how to catch them so that we can cut them off at the pass so they don't control our actions so much. So here's the thing. Let's start with what exactly are limiting beliefs? Well, simply put, they are Wizard of Oz. They're the man behind the curtain, or woman in this case. They are the voice in your head that tell you things that you shouldn't do, that you can't do. And the reason they're so hard to spot is because they sound just like you. And they come from a wealth of different places. They come from parents. They come from teachers. They come from religion. They come from culture. Even astrology and spirituality, when used wrong, can create limiting beliefs. I'll give you an example. For years and years and years, I've always been into astrology, but I'm a Capricorn sun. And so whenever I tell everybody that, they'll be like, oh, like you must be like a go-getter. You know, Capricorns work, 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 and they just want to work. That's all they want. They want money and they don't have any emotion. Okay, so first of all, I got a lot of emotion. And second of all, I am a hustler, but I don't want to only work because it defined me. I sometimes had those limiting beliefs. Well, I can't take a day off because, I got to go work. I'm meant to make lots of money. I'm a Capricorn, right? So defined me. Astrology and spirituality should be used to empower. When they are used to define somebody, that can create limiting beliefs. Everything has its goods and its bads. It depends on how it's used. So what I would say is that when you define somebody, that takes away their power. One key thing I think is important to realize about limiting beliefs, besides those where it comes from, is also that people think limiting beliefs are dramatic, very obvious, and they're really not. Most of the time, they're very, very subtle. Very subtle. Things like people like me don't do that. No. I'm 40 years old. I can't sell everything I own and go to Europe and travel for a year. That's what they do when they're 20. Words that came from my mouth. I'll never be as good as them. I need to earn rest. If I change, I'll lose people. Me too. The problem is that those are putting you in a box, right? So I think before we move on, if any of these resonated with you, or you had a little twinge, or you cringed, I think you might want to pay attention, because that is your intuition telling you that one of those has got your name on it. And that's not bad. We can work with it. We can overcome limiting beliefs. Trust me. So how do you spot them in real time? How do you spot limiting beliefs if they're subtle and they're quiet? So the first thing is you always have to look at your emotions. Tension, defensiveness, resistance. All of these things are emotions that are telling you you can't go there. That is a limiting belief right there. Why can't I go there? Why do I feel like that's forbidden for me? If your thoughts are I can't, I'm not, that's just not how I am, those are limiting beliefs. They are conditioning at their most insidious. They're not true. When these things happen, you have to pause and question them. So the second thing was those automatic thoughts. Anytime you hear that, that's the second clue that this is a limiting belief. Finally, the third big one, repetitive patterns. We all have them. Reoccurring issues in relationships, with money, with self-worth. These are all clues that you have limiting beliefs. You're hitting the same wall over and over again. And we all know that the definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over again and expect different results. So, and I'm not by any means calling anybody insane. I'm just saying that it is our body, we're hitting these walls over and over again. That wall is a limiting belief. And in the end, if you keep hitting that wall, it's not going to fall. you're going to knock yourself out. You got to figure out how to go around that wall. So once you've recognized them and you've spotted them and you see these patterns, now it's time to really do the work. This is where questioning and reframing comes in. Once a belief is spotted, you have to challenge it. Who told me that? Is that actually true right now? What's a more freeing thought that could also be true? So for instance, I said a minute ago, one of the examples was I'm 40 years old and I can't sell everything out and go to Europe. I actually did that, and that was something that I had to combat. Like, that was the thought in my head. I was like, oh my God, I'm 40 years old. These people are like, usually people in their 20s do this. I'm going to be staying in hostels. There's no way I can do that. I'm going to feel out of place. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And you know what I did? I just said, okay, I just tackled one limiting belief at a time, and I did sell everything out. I did quit my job. I did go to Europe for a year. And it was the most amazing thing I ever did. And if I had let those limiting beliefs stop me, I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't have found my true path. I wouldn't have realized stuff about myself that I had never thought about, that I had never let myself think about. So those limiting beliefs your limiting beliefs are conquerable. You have to ask yourself the questions, though. You have to challenge it. And then once you figure it out, you have to reframe. Maybe I'm not good enough becomes I'm learning I'm capable. For me, it was there are people out there that travel when they're older. Just do it. You don't know till you try, kind of thing. Small shifts, though. I need small shifts. I took a whole year before I did all this, partially because that's just who I am, but partially because I had to overcome those limiting beliefs. I had to work through those, well, this is silly. You can't do this now. You're too old. You're not like everybody else. I had to work through those little by little, but little shifts create big freedom. And then if you want to do some deeper work, you can journal, you can use tarot, astrology, like looking at certain houses or planets that point to like self-worth or powerful fears. This is all good. For instance, like if you wanted to use astrology, I would say look at your first, your second, fifth, and 10th houses, your Venus, your Moon, your Saturn, these areas. You can take all that and kind of figure out where your limiting beliefs are, where they came from, where they start, how maybe you can even use it to decondition, which is what I do in my coaching. And I think that's important. You can use this tool to help you find those patterns, those fears, and really work to conquer those limiting beliefs. It's important, guys, to realize limiting beliefs do not vanish overnight, but naming them reduces their control. Just like in magic, when you can name something, it takes its power. It's the same thing. When you can name a limiting belief, its power starts to diminish. It will lose its control. You don't need to fight them. You need to bring them into the light. It's a little bit of shadow work. You're not telling those limiting beliefs that they're bad. Maybe those limiting beliefs were there to keep you safe. But in the end, as I said at the beginning, they will wind up making you stuck. So that's it for today, guys. Share this with someone else who's working on freeing themselves from their limiting beliefs. And I just want you guys to remember, you're not broken. You're just becoming something new. As always, if you want to reach out to me, you can do that. You can message me in the comments here, or you can head over to my social media on TikTok or Instagram and get there. If you're looking for a tarot read or an astrology read, message me there. And I am starting to make lists for my coaching program that will launch eventually within the next, I'm into March. So if you're interested in that, testing out this 3 keys method I use, definitely message me over there so I can get you on a list. And other than that, that's it. I want you guys to stay safe, stay real, stay curious, and stay kind to yourself. Have a blessed day.